Alright, February 1st, 2021. It's just after a rainy period, so sort of our spring, but past our winter. More rain expected, but it's been kind of a dry 2021. It's been a dry 2020, I should say. This is the ribis pink flowering currant, and it is flowering. This is expected. January is its normal flowering period, so it's getting bigger and bolder every year. It'll soon be a really nice bush. I'm really happy about this ribis. This is a good showpiece for the front yard. Good plant. I particularly like this variety because it has no thorns. Thorns are bad when you have people walking by on a regular basis, so this particular ribis is a great front yard ambassador for California natives. I really enjoy it. We had some plants dug up accidentally via all the work, but on the other hand, the ones off on the side are thriving. The Douglas irises, the coral bells. That poor yerba buena has been through a lot. It's gotten trodden on quite a bit with all the workmen and everything going through, but it's still hanging in there. Yerba buena, once it gets established, is a pretty good fella. We even have a couple of poppies starting to seed. They were not planted there. That's their own. So, yay for poppies. Let's see. Over here, the sandhill sedge is doing really awesomely. I love this particular sandhill sedge. We originally planted 3 of them, or 4. This is the only one to thrive. We had one that was still hanging on as of last year, and it seems to have bit the dust. This guy is thriving. This guy's doing wonderful. I have no idea what the difference is in locations and everything, but it really likes this particular area. This is a really fun sandhill sage. I said sedge before, didn't I? Sage. This is a sage. This is a sandhill sage. Really nice little fellow. That's a impromptu lavender that needs to be dug up. Give the huckleberry its room. The meadow rue, sadly, did not survive. Actually, either that or it's going to grow back, but it does not look like either of my meadow rues survived. I'm like, oh, they were doing so good last year. Last year they had a really great blooming time period. But this is what gardening does. Some plants survive, some plants do not, and you just replant and move along. On the other hand, the coral bells, they are doing really awesome. These are the maxima, the large varieties, and they are large and they're doing really nicely. So they are doing quite well in this particular location, and that leaf does not want to go back. So happy sedge there. Huckleberry over there. These woodland strawberries were not actually planted, but hey, if they're doing well, let them survive. All right. We've got the bronze mat manzanitas are doing fairly well. They haven't expanded a lot, but on the other hand, they're still alive. And in this particular location, that seems to kill off a lot of other things. I'm happy that the Bronze Hill manzanitas are just surviving. So that's an accomplishment for them. I planted a new serpentine manzanita year before last, so about a year and a half ago. So It is still alive. It takes a little bit of time for it to get established. This guy on the other side is also a serpentine manzanita, and he was planted 4 years ago as opposed to this guy who was planted just a year and a half ago. So once they get established, they grow really, really well. So this serpentine manzanita is one of the larger varieties of manzanita, and you can see it's in its flowery berry stage as well. So I'm really happy to have a good established manzanita right there. And that particular bronze manzanita is also doing very well. As you can see, a variety of manzanitas there too. This is a rather obviously a ground creeping manzanita, and that one is the large shrub bush manzanita. Hopefully I can find a way to get some more manzanitas in. I really enjoy manzanita as a plant. It's a gorgeous bush. I love their redwood bark. And I'm just not doing so well on the narration today, so. All right. Look up manzanitas, you'll love them too. That is my California fuschia starting to grow back in again. They got trimmed down after they finished their growing period. The sign keeps getting knocked over because I've got neighborhood kids who like to use that as a jump. We've got rosy buckwheat. The rosy buckwheat is a little bit not necessarily the prettiest at the moment, but it is hanging in there, and it's actually blooming again right now. What are you doing blooming right now? That's rosy buckwheats. They are so durable once you get them going. They don't necessarily always keep their look. They do have a tendency to die back periodically, but they reestablish and thrive. They send offshoots going everywhere. So this is more rosy buckwheat over there, and you can see how they're just sort of offshooting with little seedlings everywhere. There's rosy buckwheats over here. Those rosy buckwheats are from the seedlings across the way. They were not planted. But you know what? If a rosy buckwheat wants to survive, it can go for it. I was planning to go ahead and pull out some seedlings for the native garden tour, but that's happening virtually again this year, so no seedlings. Let's see. More California fuschia starting to pop back up again. The buckwheat got trimmed down after its explosive year, and it's thriving as a little bush. It's getting bigger it's starting to rival the rosemary right next to it. It's actually a really good complementary bush to the rosemary there. No, the rosemary is not native, but I use it for kitchen gardening. The buckwheat is a very good fellow. Last year it was very happy when it was blossoming out. This is a non-native strawberry tree. It's a cousin of the manzanita, so it's European, but it is sort of a cousin, and hopefully will complement the look and feel of the manzanitas. When I was looking for street trees in this little dull zone area that nothing ever grows in, there were not that many California natives that actually thrive in this little area in a compacted zone going straight down that would not interfere with sewer lines, and that would actually survive a lot of abuse. So this is why we have a non-native in here, but I'm hoping it complements the native section with fruits and berries and such for the critters in the area. We have a gum plant over there, which is doing quite well, which is actually not the best location for it because it gets onto the cars when it's going full on out. We had another gum plant right there, which actually seems to have died off this year. It had a very good year, but I'm not all that upset about that particular one because hopefully I can plant a new plant which is a little bit more friendly to cars and will be able to take the abuse. These are rosy buckwheat seedlings. I'm pretty darn sure. Yeah, those are rosy buckwheat seedlings. Rosy buckwheats everywhere. Or California fuschia. All right. The California sagebrushes went ahead and were very dry over this. They were pretty gray looking, but you can see with the return of the rain, they are starting to green out again. These guys in the front stay fairly gray overall, so this is pretty much their normal look. Ceanothus right here. The coyote mint is not happy with the abuse. It's on the sidewalk area, but it's thriving. I mean, it's not thriving, it's surviving. I love my island pitcher sages, but they don't like being quite that close to the sagebrushes, which, you know what, plants grow up and they grow out, and you see what survives best in the particular zones. It was good to have the island pitcher sages there while the sagebrushes were growing out, so I am appreciative of them. We'll try and find a new area for the island pitcher sages because I do like them. More ceanothus. These are ground varieties. Up again. That rosy buckwheat was another. Well, it was kind of it was not deliberately planted there. It was another seedling that thrived, and we said, you know what, we're going to let it have its day. Here, have another location. I don't want too many rosy buckwheats, but on the other hand, it's surviving. This guy is a desert mallow and has gorgeous flowers during its flowering season, and is really doing well there. I did not. Mallows are a little bit sensitive and don't always thrive, so I'm really happy about the way this guy has been doing really well right here. He's a little bit tucked in right now, but I think that's common for this time of year. That area is a little bit mounded, and I think that's one of the things that's helping its roots, is to have that area not flat on the ground, but to have it a little bit mounded where it's growing in. Normally, my verbena is really thriving, so I'm not entirely sure why it's not thriving at the moment. We'll see. Poor thing. And my monkey flower. Oh, it had a really good year as well, but you can see from where its sign is compared to where it is, but I think that poor monkey flower just gave up the ghost as well. You know, this is what happens in native gardening. This is what happens in gardening, period. Some plants survive, some plants thrive, some do not. And you work with what fits in your garden. You have one plan and nature has another. The seaside daisies are doing really well. We had a gap in the seaside daisies, and we decided to go ahead and plant a new fellow who I know really, really well, and his name is currently escaping me. Another really sensitive plant that we've planted 4 of them, and 3 of them died, but this guy's holding on. I'm really, really hoping that he actually thrives, because this would be a great spot for him as well. The hummingbird sages, really close to the island pitcher sages, but the hummingbird sages are doing great under those trees. They like their shady spot there, and they have been expanding, and so I'm really hoping for a really good hummingbird sage year this year. More buckwheat. Buckwheat, buckwheat, buckwheat. The desert lavender is growing tall, growing really tall, growing bushy, growing nice. I'm happy with my desert lavender. This is a nice desert lavender. And it's not, it is a California native, although not generally to this area, more in the desert, but it is not actually related to regular lavender, but it gets its name because it smells a little like lavender. And then we've got more sagebrush starting to go nice and green. I always worry about it when it goes brown, but that's just its season. Oh my goodness. Oh yes. This is the reason I have this one. Oh, it smells wonderful. I love sagebrush. Sagebrush is so great. And it does really well. I love my little sagebrush there. And there's an island snapdragon there. I need to ask my neighbors to trim their trees away from my plants. But there used to be a fence board back there, and we took the fence board out, and wow, their trees decided to go ahead and spring into my yard. I might have to recreate the fence boards again. But the island snapdragon's doing well. This is a California fuschia that did not get trimmed down. I was trying to extend the life of the hummingbird foraging time. And so you can see the difference between where a hummingbird, a fuschia goes ahead and gets trimmed down every year and where it does not. So it's starting to poke back up, but they do actually die down, and usually the best thing for it is to get trimmed down all the way. So you can count this guy as sort of an experiment, but he will regrow. But you can see during this time period after its final blooms, doesn't look the best. But you know what? Seeds, plants, and the hummingbird's got a lot, and it is starting to regrow there. So the spice bush did really well this year. It came off a lot of spice. And the interesting thing about this tree is I put up a hummingbird, or a regular feeder, and the birds love the spice bush for perching on, which, okay, a little bit probably to the detriment of fertilizer, right? But they loved perching on that. They wait their turns at the feeder by perching on the spice bush branches. It is still alive. It's just a winter plant. Loses its leaves in the winter. It will get them back as soon as it decides it's springtime again. Hummingbird sage. At least my hummingbird sage loves things. I'm very appreciative of my hummingbird sage that's still alive. And here's more California fuschia that did not get trimmed back. So you can see again, after its final blossoming period, it goes really dry and danked and not necessarily the prettiest guy. So after it finishes all its blooming times, it will grow back. But if you're keeping an eye on your California fuschia, you might want to go ahead and trim it back to the ground. Because after you trim it back to the ground, then it goes ahead and starts blooming out again like this. So this is going to be a very bright and colorful California fuschia when it goes ahead and gets started again. So, and that is Front Yard Native Garden.